Hey there, Mark here. Quick programming note. So you may know that I host a podcast called Pickleball Problems, and you can see it here on Selkirk TV, and you can listen to it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And one of the things I love doing is occasionally bringing on guests and talking to them about a wide variety of things going on in the pickleball world. And one of my favorite guests to have is Morgan Evans. He's one of the real personalities of pickleball, and I love picking his brain when it comes to coaching stuff or technique or tactics or whatever. This time for the show, I talked to Morgan. We had an extended conversation, and we talked about some of the new serves that we're seeing in pickleball. And most notably, I saw him hit some amazing serves at an APP event recently, and the ball was bouncing in ways I've never seen pickleballs bounce before. Left and right and back and forward. Anyway, it was quite something. And what I want to do is to sit down with Morgan and talk about this as well as a whole bunch of other things. So here's a snippet from the Pickleball Problems podcast interview. You can see the whole version on the Third Shot Sports YouTube channel, and you can also listen to the whole podcast over at Pickleball Problems. Okay, so let's get to it. Morgan Evans, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure to be here, mate.
Okay, so there's lots I want to talk to you about. You've got lots going on, and I'm always curious. You're, one of the busiest men in pickleball. But before we get too far down this road, I was watching a tournament this past weekend. It was the APP event in Los Angeles that you hosted. You, along with Kim Jade, hosted this tournament. And to be honest, Morgan, you did something that I thought was kind of rude. I generally think that when you host a tournament, you're not also supposed to win it. Usually you let someone else win the tournament, but instead you, along with Jay DeVilliers, went ahead and just took home gold.
Yeah, look, it was rude. I'm not a very nice guy. I kind of moonlight as a decent bloke on occasions, but no, it was a fantastic event. And Jay, firstly, thanks to Pat Smith for backing out in the last minute. When I got the call from Jay, it was definitely a resounding yes, please take me. And he's just an animal. Oh my God, watching him take over when needed. It's fantastic. Reminds me of the late great Marcin Respetsky, and I say late because
he's still alive,
still with us. But if he could turn up on time, geez,
yeah.
I actually just finished drilling with him, about 20 minutes ago. So,
oh wow,
Polish monster back.
Well, it's great. Yeah, it's great to hear that Marcin is back, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about him and what makes him such a great player and the partnership that you two have. But before we get too far down there, down that line, as part of the APP, you're often behind the mic, right? You're helping out with the broadcast commentary. You're part of that team. And in this case, this tournament you hosted, you got to play, which was great. And someone posted in the Pickleball Instructor Forum that I oversee on Facebook, they posted some clips of you serving. And I know the commentators, Dominic Catalano and Lauren McLaughlin, this really caught their attention. So what I want to do is I'll share with you this clip, and you know what, I'll even play the audio so you can hear them a little bit. And I just like to get some commentary from you about what you're doing here in this serve. Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this is you serving, and that's you at the top of the screen in the red, and you just finished serving from the right-hand side. You switched over, and we'll take a look here.
In the blue on the near end, and Elliot Markowitz in the black.
Okay, so let's watch that again. They just mentioned this guy in the black. I don't think I'm going to say his name again because this is nothing against you, but it was a bit of an embarrassment for him. He got all twisted up like a pretzel.
Near end, and Elliot Markowitz in the black.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. Yeah. A grown man in the pro division here, ending up flat on his face. And here, if we watch the next point, you serve from the right-hand side this time, and the serve is quite different.
That's true. Yeah, it's two different motions.
Okay, let's see here.
Little ace there from Morgan Evans. You can see he's been working on that trademark serve. Made some improvements, Dom.
Yeah, he has, and the improvements were to the tune of 26 aces yesterday in mixed doubles. 26.
Yeah, it's more fun watching him than playing.
Yeah, I know. I know it is sometimes funny watching yourself play. Here's one more I want to show you because you get a really good perspective on the angle here. This is you. I think they slowed it down here. Watch this. Okay, so here's.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
Great
I did not
shot.
get to see Evans play yesterday. He was never on a court that I was commentating on. But this serve.
When he's on the left-hand side, he
Oh,
faces
yeah.
the side wall.
That was crazy. This is amazing. California for this stop of the APP Tour, for anyone wondering. And another ace.
Hold on.
I don't
Morgan, he was facing us.
He's
looked
almost
like
backwards.
He looked like he was going to hit me with the ball, and then all of a sudden just comes underneath it. That's awesome. That backhand.
That's Mr. Singles player, Jocelyn
He
DeVilliers
hits
right
that,
there.
and Morgan just covers his mouth going, ooh, that was nice.
That was pretty.
But if you can kind of, you can't see, but Morgan's going to stop it. He's looking right.
It's stupid, guys, to
It's
see
so
that in
good.
person.
Okay.
Did she just call me stupid? Oh,
I think she called it stupid. There's a fine distinction to be made
oh
there.
good.
But okay, so why don't you start? Tell me, first of all, what are you thinking about as you're getting ready to serve, whether it's right side or left serve, and then what are you doing that is so different and unique?
Okay, so well, I mean, it starts with the spin out of the hand. So it's very much just a clicking motion around the ball. A lot of people can click their fingers, obviously. It's obviously with my left hand that I'm doing it, so it takes a little bit of extra work to get it good. But as the ball clicks out of my hand, it also gets some elevation. That's I've been doing that for about 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that before, and how I said, oh, I saw you was at Nationals a few years ago, and I took some slow-mo, and I was like, oh, he's tossing it with spin, and you're like, no, Mark, it's more of a click, or like a snap almost, to send it up there with that spin, right?
Yeah, it's the old click and dip.
Yeah, so you've been doing that for a little bit.
Yeah, that's I'd say probably close to 3 years now. It took about 6 months or so to get it good enough to feel comfortable in a tournament. But recently I've been working on creating different angles, tossing the ball in different directions, and sort of contorting the body as needed to create basically a kind of a kick serve. Well, 2 different kick serves, very similar to what you see in tennis, except it's kind of like having a right-handed player do a kick serve from the right-hand side of the court, and then that person becoming left-handed and doing a kick serve with their left hand on the ad side of the court.
Right. And so for people who aren't familiar with the kick serve necessarily, or don't have a tennis background, can you explain a little bit, like what's the difference between a kick and, say, just typical top spin, which people might be more familiar with?
Right. Okay. So yes, a kick serve is kind of a combination of top spin and side spin. So the ball ends up traveling on, spinning on an axis as it's traveling through the air. And based on whatever axis that is, when it contacts the ground, it'll rebound in a direction that is often the opposite as to where the ball is traveling. So it creates kind of a disconnect between a player who sees the ball coming in a certain direction, obviously needs to let the ball bounce, and that bounce going in the opposite direction.
Right, so you're getting a combination of the top spin and the side spin, and so that ball, sure, it might rebound faster because of the top spin, but then it also rebounds on one angle or another. Yeah. So either jamming the person if it's too close or getting away if it's too far. Exactly.
So often people are lining up to hit a forehand only to discover it's actually going to have to be a backhand, or giving themselves plenty of room thinking it's going to be coming into them, and then realizing, oh, it's not where I hoped it was going to be. So
right. We saw an example of that for that poor guy who had to try to return your serve. And it sounds like, from what Lauren and Dom were saying, in the mixed doubles, that also sounded like it was pretty effective.
Yeah, mixed, it was even more so. And I would like to apologize to absolutely no one. No. I've always wanted to say that.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so great. So we understand now, okay, we've got top spin, we've got some side spin, it's creating this kicking action. And it looked like you were doing things a bit differently on the right side versus the left. So can you say something about like that decision-making process and like, are you thinking differently about it? Why are you using different techniques on one side versus the other? Because you often hear people say like, look, when you're serving, you should just serve to get it in, or you should like just master one technique and do that again and again. Like this seems to be sort of the opposite of that.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I wanted to make sure that whichever spin I was using was going to either jam an opponent or force them to not be able to use their most effective return weapon. And having the ball bounce in towards the court seemed like that was the best way. If I used the same technique on both sides, then people would very quickly start to get a better read on which way it's going to bounce.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, it's only going to take a couple of weeks for people to study the tape and start realizing which way it's likely to go, and I'm going to have to reinvent myself again. And you'll see me in a year, I suppose.
Well, I mean, that's one of I think one of the great things about sport in general, but also an emerging sport like pickleball in particular, where there's still so much room for experimentation and innovation and this whole cat and mouse game, right? Like, okay, oh shoot, Morgan's doing something new. How are we going to adjust? Or we see with Zane and his serve, right? And now Ben is even like copying that to some extent a little bit. And so, and then of course the returners need to adjust, and it kind of becomes this dialogue, right? As people figure something out, then that forces them to innovate and do something new.
Yeah, it's like, piracy and copyright laws. They're always just trying to stay one step ahead of each other. And I think it's great. I personally think it's good that we're by no means at a plateau in terms of the development of technique in this game, whether it be the serve, whether it be returns, dinking styles, movement patterns. We are a long way away from kind of being able to say, all right, we think this is basically good pickleball technique. I mean, we're piggybacking off tennis to a large extent. I personally think when very high level ping pong players really enter the sport, then we're in trouble. We're in serious trouble based on the reaction speeds they have and the kinds of distances they're used to being from their opponents. I'm afraid of those people.
Well, especially those of us who come from tennis backgrounds where, and that's many of the top pickleball players do come from tennis backgrounds. So what you're able to read and perceive, the closer that is in terms of technique to tennis, those of us from tennis can draw on that background to be able to read and perceive what's coming. And then all of a sudden, if you pick another sport, like whether it's table tennis or badminton or something else, and all of a sudden the movement is different, it becomes much harder then to pick up what's going to come until it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. We're all very much programmed to read body language. And the moment, you've got someone like a Jeff Warnick, or even back in the day, I remember trying to figure out where Brian Ashworth, was going to hit the ball based on his grip. And those kinds of, it's confusing. It's very difficult.
Henry Winarto to me is a good example.
Oh, Henry. Right? Oh my God. Flicky. God, amazing. What is he doing?
You think he's going to hit it with a backhand and it ends up being a forehand?
All of a sudden. Exactly.
Warnick's a good example. Okay, so I know people will be watching this then. I think they're going to have a couple questions, and I'd like you to answer as much as you're comfortable. So one is, okay, let's say I'm just sort of your regular club player who's kind of bought into the idea that, hey, maybe the serve can be more than just start the point. It can start to be an offensive shot. Maybe I don't have to go for aces or unreturnable serves, but I can start to do a bit more. What kind of advice would you give to someone who sees you serving like this, who says, look, I'm no Morgan Evans, but I'd still like my serve to be better? Is this a path that they can go down, trying to sort of contort their body or experimenting with spins? Or what advice would you give to sort of the average player who's looking to improve their serve?
Firstly, don't be afraid. You can't lose a point. I think you got to remember that there, and I suppose there's two schools of thought on that. You don't want to waste an opportunity to score points, but you can't lose a point when you're serving. So don't hesitate to try something new. as you said, experimentation. Experimentation is not just for college. Pickleball is seriously